We're continuing our final show and our final look at 2020, and I thought I'd look at the biggest show for this year, the Minister of Health daily, well, now 3 times weekly press conference, or as I like to call it, keeping up with the COVIDs. Now, you see, in this country, tragedy has a way of bringing the nation together to bash the media. Because I'm 100% convinced there is a huge portion of this population that, 1, has never watched local TV, and 2, has no idea where news comes from. So with every non-essential worker at home, they were all tuned in to their first press conference ever in life, and, seeing how the news sausage is made. And I could go on and on about why people may think we're not asking the right questions and why journalists were forced to ask questions in a certain way or have to... Listen, sometimes they didn't do great, I'm not going to lie, but let's look back at some of my top moments of keeping up with the COVIDs. First up, Akash Samaru, good friend of mine, so don't get in between that, I'm not rabsing him. He was one of the first people who had to ask questions when they switched to the new virtual setting. And well, it didn't go quite according to plan when he had a follow-up.
Yes, hello?
Yes.
Right, I need to follow up on that first question. I'm going to kindly ask the moderator to not mute my mic like last time when I was continuing along this line of questionings.
Man, the early days were rough. We get relics, for asking questions. So before Dr. Parasram and Dr. Hines became these household names, a lot of Trinis probably had a very dark view of our healthcare system and the professionals in it. So that's why one journalist came out and asked, well, who are you? To the nation's, now favorite stern mother figure, Dr. Michelle Trotman.
And Dr. Trotman, what is your area of specialty and what is the extent of your management of COVID patients?
I'm an internist. That's
Sorry. Sorry.
I'm
Are you finished?
No, I'm an internist. That's a specialist that takes care of adult-related medical problems. I'm a pulmonologist, which is a specialist within the lungs, and I am an intensivist, which is someone who takes care of patients in the ICUs.
And speaking of household names, a few of them in the media became that this year. AZP by Prior Bihari. I genuinely still cannot tell you what AZP stands for, but so it goes. And then there was News Source by Rhoda Barrett, and journalists knew Rhoda as a political commentator, but everybody was like, what? How she gets into this press conference? That, of course, sparked Devant Maraj's quest to join, even going as far as threatening to take it to the courts. But look, there was one, let's call it an alt-media house, that had everyone scratching their heads. Gwyneth Stewart and Astronaut News, this small health newsletter mostly on Facebook. Listen, there was a collective gasp when the nation first heard her being called upon to ask a question, but none more audible than that of National Security Minister George Young.
Astronaut News.
Gwyneth Stewart, Astronaut Health Newspaper.
I know, that was my reaction too. Look, dealing with the media is absolutely no easy task. Sometimes we're pretty terrible. But, politicians are good at dealing with us. So much so that, remember when we couldn't figure out which day midnight means? They were ready for that.
Akash, from midnight tomorrow night.
Now that you made the announcement that that's going to happen. So it's going to happen.
Yes,
right.
And sometimes journalists write very sensational stories like death statistics without context. Well, the doctors had some thoughts.
We don't, with the information presented, have any kind of context. One does not simply splash raw mortality data across a newspaper page. We present information in a context, and we will continue to do so. And we'd like to ask you to continue to trust the information that is being provided.
Look, journalists are somehow expected to be experts in everything, knowing just enough to challenge somebody who's been studying something their entire lives based solely on the information that we crammed the night before or during lunch. Which, of course, brings us to this.
Log on log, when I look it up on Google, it speaks about the growth of microbes.
Thing I'd like to do is thank Dr. Avery Hines, who is a medical epidemiologist with a master's degree out of Cambridge in epidemiology, that created this graph for today's media conference. And Rashi, not to discount your Google search relating to microbes, but
Ah, yes, the crowd went wild with that one. And really, the only way to end this segment is with Terence D'Alsing, another one of those character redemption arcs. Let's talk about the one when he said he was hacked.
Minister D'Alsing, I saw last evening on your Facebook profile that you advised a member of the public to mute the television when it's time for reporters to ask their questions. Now, this after the gentleman asked if he had to listen to us asking irrelevant, dotish, and vexing questions. What did you mean by that, Minister?
My Facebook profile was hacked. I never posted that myself. My Facebook profile has been hacked several times.
Or that time when he told us what to say when someone asked us to come and lime in their house.
When you are ill, whose hospitals are you going to? Whose healthcare workers are going to take care of you? Your own? You have oxygen in your house? You have a heart monitor in your house? You have a ventilator in your house? You have IV set up in your house?
But really, I think what we're going to do is mash up a few of my favorite things because, I just want to hear him say it again and again.
To CARFA. CARFA sent to CARFA, which is in the same compound with CARFA, and certified by CARFA.
All right, so since we have a little bit more time, I think we have a few runners-up, the things that didn't make the cut but still did. Ian Allen got COVID, guys.
That I just found out that I've been tested positive for the COVID-19. I don't want to die. I just don't want to die.
And back to Terence D'Alsing, he lost it in Parliament.
I must take advice from you. Hydroxychloroquine killing people. And I must take advice from the UNC to use hydroxychloroquine, rum, and punching to treat COVID.
And the Prime Minister became human for a little while.
When I spent my first year on campus in Jamaica, the first Christmas I was not home with my family in Tobago, I make sure I lock my door. And I cry for the whole day. I know that feeling. I know the feeling of watching the television and seeing those coffins in New York being covered temporarily because they can't cope with the death rate. Indecent funerals. I know my daughter is there. I feel that every morning, every night.
And for old time's sake, my favorite, the leader of the opposition.
You cannot abandon over 10,000 citizens of your country. You cannot do that. That is worse than, I think, slavery and indentureship.
All right, all in all, I have truly enjoyed keeping up with the COVIDs. It's been a good run, but I really do think it's time that it gets cancelled. So here's to no more COVID-19 in 2021. Let's take a break.